Hey everybody, it's Miss Sawyer here. We're here to do a little review over the first few sections that we covered this semester, and we're going to get ready for a little quiz on the points, lines, and planes section, the segment addition, and the angle addition section. So we're just going to run through some quick examples. Hopefully you got a chance to try this before you've watched this video. I'm going to caution you, if you have not tried any of these questions, pause your video, go back, try the questions yourselves, and because there is no assignment that goes with this necessarily, so try the questions yourself and then come back and see how you did. If there's things that you're still struggling with, by all means, pop into office hours. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer video. We've got 4 slides to get through, so this will take a few minutes. So make sure you've tried them before you watch the video. All right, so let's go into this. If we're going to name another name for line WQ, they said give 2 other names. Well, the first and easiest name, if they're going to give you line WQ, is for us simply to write it backwards as line QW. But the other way that we can talk about this line is using the letter at the end, so we can call this line G. Now, same thing goes. If we're going to name another name for plane V, I'm going to give you a couple of options. That's not necessarily all of them, but I'll try to give you as many as I can come up with right now. So plane V is talking about everything inside of this shaded rectangular space. So if we want to talk about plane V, the other way we could talk about it is calling it plane QST. Now, QST, I've picked 3 points that are inside this plane that do not go in a straight line. Remember, the 3 we don't want to pick are R, Q, and S. I don't want to use those 3 because those go in a straight line, which means that doesn't tell me the whole plane. So as long as you picked T and any 2 other points out of these 3, then you would have a correct answer for that situation. And they could go in any order they want to. All right, so number 9 says name 3 points that are collinear. Let's start with that. The 3 that are collinear on the same line are R, Q, and S. And it says then name a 4th point that is non-collinear with those 3 points. Well, R, Q, and S are collinear, and point T is not on the same line. Number 10 says name a point that is non-coplanar with R, S, and T. Well, which point is not in the plane? The only point that's actually not in the plane is up here. That would be point W. So all those points, R, Q, S, and T, are all coplanar, and W is not coplanar. Let's go take a look at some other questions involving segments. All right, if it says name 4 points, that's fine. Pick any 4 as long as you don't pick T or S. So I'm going to pick A, D, E, and C. As long as you picked any 4 in there without picking T or S, you had a correct answer. If it said name 2 lines, well, okay, one line in that diagram is line DE, and another line in that diagram is line BC. You could have switched the order of the letters around. Now, we could not use A because A didn't have a second point. Even though A is looking like it's on a corner or an edge, okay, it does not have a second point for us to name a line, so we can't do that. The plane that contains points A, B, and C would be plane S. And the plane that contains points A, D, and E would be plane T. All right, let's keep moving. The next portion we're going to look at is our segment addition. Now, they gave us the instructions for what the segment looks like. Point S is between R and T. So, both of these are going to have a segment with R, T, and S somewhere in between. They've told us R to S is 2x plus 10, S to T is x minus 4, and the whole thing is 21. They said, use the information to write an equation in terms of x, solve the equation, and find the lengths of the 3 segments. Well, we know the length of RT because they told us. So to find x, we will do 2x plus 10 plus x minus 4 equals 21. Combine like terms, so we get 3x plus 10 minus 4 is 6 equals 21. Subtract 6 from both sides. Going to need a little bit more room here. So we get 3x equals 15. Divide by 3. We find out that x equals 5. But the question didn't ask me for x. It asked me to find the length of these two segments. Well, we plug 5 back in. 5 minus 4, s to t is only 1 unit long. 2 times 5 plus 10, this segment is 20 units long, and 20 plus 1 is equal to 21. So we know we got it right. Same thing goes on in part B. We can use the same line segment if we want to. So R, S, and T. So we have 3x minus 16, 4x minus 8, the whole segment, whoops, not 80, it's 60. Whole segment is 60. So if you want to add up like terms ahead of time, 3x and 4x will give us 7x. Negative 16 and negative 8, if we add those two together, we are going to be looking at negative 24 equals 60. Add the 24 to both sides. So we end up with 7x equals 84. Divide both sides by 7. We find out that x equals 12. And then we plug the 12 back in. So if we do 3 times 12 minus 16, we find out that this section ends up being 20. And then if we plug in down here, 4 times 12 minus 8, this section ends up being 40. And 20 plus 40 is going to equal up to 60. All right, moving right along. The next section here is going to ask you to give some measurements for these angles. So I will strongly encourage you to use a highlighter or something when you are working on these, especially if you have it on paper or if you printed the practice assignment or if you printed the study guide. So the first question is asking you to find AOC. So we know that angle is going to be acute, and if we count the distance in between here, remember we're counting by tens, we've got 10, 20, 30. So AOC is just 30 degrees. For angle BOD, again, if you want to trace it in, you can, BOD. Now this one doesn't cross at a nice even number, but I will tell you that for the most part, you can almost estimate we're either going to be counting in 5s or 10s. So from here, if I count up on the inside line, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and I'm halfway in between, we'll say this is at 65 degrees. Now, the one that might give people trouble is angle COD, so I'm going to take all of these markings off of here so we can highlight just angle COD. So COD, if we're just looking at that angle, what I would suggest everyone do is look at the numbers either again outside or inside. This ray that's coming out at C crosses at 30, and the ray on the outside of D crosses at 115. If I were to subtract those two from each other, if I did 115 minus 30, I'd find out that this is an 85-degree angle. And if you look at it, it's pretty close to being almost a right angle. So that would make sense for that angle. The last one we're looking for is EOD, which is this little skinny angle right in here. So again, we know that this is at 115. This is at 140. So if we do 140 minus 115, we find out that this little skinny angle here is 25 degrees. Question number 5, I did take the directions off, but the point of question number 5 was to have you practice naming angles. So if we had to name this angle in 4 different ways, remember the 2 easy ways. Angle 1, you can use the number if it's there. Easy way number 2, use the vertex. And then the more complicated ways is to use the angle symbol with JKL or angle LJK. So remember, you can go either way around the edge of the angle, but the middle letter, oh, I just caught my own mistake. I said LKJ and I didn't write it down. LKJ. It's a good thing I went to go underline those. The middle letter has got to be your vertex letter. Okay, so whatever the vertex is, when you name it with the three points, you've got to make sure that middle point is always your vertex. All right, and our last 2 questions that we need to go over in order to finish this out for our review, we've got 2 angle addition problems to take care of. Remember, angle addition is no different than segment addition. The 2 angles that are on the inside, the smaller angles, add up to give you the total angle, which they gave you in the directions here. So let's take a look at these 2. If we have these 2 smaller angles, let's add up some like terms. So 2x plus 9x would get me 11x. 23 minus 5 would get me 18. And they told me that all of this together equals up to 95. So let's solve this for x, because then we have to plug, they said find the measures of these 2 angles, which means we're going to have to plug our answer back in. So let's solve for x first. So if we subtract 18 from both sides, then we have 11x equals 77. Divide both sides by 11, and we get that x is equal to 7. If we plug 7 back into both of these, so 2 times 7 plus 23, that's going to turn this angle into 37. And if we do 9 times 7 minus 5, that's going to give me 63 minus 5 is going to give me 58. I'll know that I have the right answer if these 2 add back up to 95. So just be careful. You've got to read your questions carefully to see, did they ask you to find x, or did they ask you to find the measures of the angles or segments? If they ask for the angles, you're going to have to plug your answer back in. All right, and the last question of our review here, we've got the same idea. X, Y, Z is the whole thing. So here's our total. Let's add up some like terms. So we've got 6x and a negative 10x, which would add together to give me negative 4x. 44 and 65, if I add those up, I should get up to 109. They told me that both of those angles total together to be 117. So let's subtract the 109 from both sides. That leaves me with negative 4x equals 8. Divide by negative 4. So x comes out to be a negative 2, but now I need to take that and plug it back in here. Negative 10 times negative 2 plus 65. Well, negative 10 times negative 2 is 20. 20 plus 65, that would get me 85. There's angle ZYW or WYZ, so this angle was 85. And then if I plug in negative 2 here, 6 times negative 2 plus 44, well, 6 times negative 2 is negative 12, and negative 12 plus 44 would get me 32. And 32 plus 85 adds back to 117. Hopefully that's going to be enough to help you get through your quiz. And again, if you've got any trouble before you take it, please feel free to reach out and get some time with me, either in our Google Meet or during my office hours. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.